Hi guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to share S3 object with someone outside your AWS account. So let's assume you have AWS account and where you have S3 bucket, and this S3 bucket you have some object. It's a file, image file, CSV file or database backup, something like that. You want to share with someone outside the AWS account. So this person doesn't have access to your AWS account. So in that case, how can you do this? So you can create something called presigned URL. It's very secure way of sharing objects in S3. This presigned URL is a time-based URL. So anyone who has this URL can access to this S3 object and download the object. So as you know, by default, when you create an object in AWS S3, those are private. Only the object owner has permission to access these objects. However, by creating this presigned URL, by using your AWS credentials, this URL can be shared with anyone. So not everybody has access to this object, but whoever has this URL will be able to download. So I'm going to show you this in a demonstration. Let's get into it. In AWS Documentation, there's a link called sharing an object with presigned URL. That link has all the details on how you can do the presigned URL, how you can generate the presigned URL. So if you scroll down to the bottom of this page, and you can see using the AWS SDKs. So if you go to this page, you can see there are several options. There are several language options that you can use to generate this presigned URL. So you can use .NET, you can use Go language, Java, PHP, Python. Since I am familiar with Python, so I'm going to demonstrate this using Python. So this is the piece of code that we need to execute basically. So this code you requires to mention the bucket name and also the object key of the object that you are going to share. And this is the time that this URL will be valid. So you need to mention that in seconds. In this case, this is 1 hour. So if you generate the code, that URL will be valid only for 1 hour. So however, if you want to run this piece of code, there are several dependency components that you need to install. So we'll get into that next. Now let's take a look at it. What are the components that we need to install in order to run this Boto3 code? So Boto3 is the code that we need to run. So we need Boto3. So Boto3 is basically based on Python. So we need Python 3. Actually, this should have been already installed because it comes with Ubuntu. And in order to install Boto3, you also need pip. So we need to install pip as well. And to get the AWS credentials configuration, it is easier if we can have AWS CLI as well. So we need to install AWS CLI. So these are the 3 components we need to install basically. To install pip, I think you can do sudo apt install python 3-pip, and this will install basically pip3. And to install Boto3, you can use pip3 install Boto3. To install AWS CLI, you can use sudo apt install AWS CLI. Let's install the software that we need to generate this signed URL. So I'm going to use this Ubuntu virtual machine for this demo purpose. So before we start anything, let's update the system as a best practice. That part is done. So I'm going to upgrade then. Since it's taking time, I will record the video once this is done. So I'm gonna pause right now. Okay, it's completed now. So the first dependency is the Python. I think this already has Python. Yes, we have the Python here. So the next tool that we need to install Boto3, but before Boto3 we need to install pip. So let's install pip here. Python 3 pip installation is completed. Now let's install Boto3. Boto3 has been installed. It was pretty quick one. And then let's install AWS CLI. That is also done. I think now we have everything. Now we have Python, we have a pip install, and we have Boto3, we have AWS CLI. I'm in AWS console now. Let's go to S3 bucket, and I already created this bucket called sign URL demo. So inside that bucket I have a subfolder called sub1, and within that bucket I have another subfolder called sub2, and I'm going to upload a file here. Let's say add file. I'm going to upload this PDF file and upload it. So this is the file I'm going to generate sign URL, and then we'll share with we'll see by using this sign URL we can access that, right? So remember, this is my bucket structure, folder structure. Sign URL demo is the bucket name. Underneath we have sub1, sub2, as we see it as subfolders. And then I'm also going to create I am user, because so that I can use that to generate the sign URL. Okay, I'm in I am user section. I'm going to create a new user. We'll call this user as sign URL S3 read only, because I need to, this user has the permission only to read S3 bucket, and I'm going to give access key programmatic access. Next permission, I'm going to attach existing policies. S3, I can give S3 full access. I also can give the bucket level access, but I'm not going to give that. Next, tags, I'm not going to give any tags. Review, create user, right? So you basically need these two access key as well as secret key. So I'm gonna copy these two right now. I also need the S3 bucket name and the object key. I'm going to find that information right now. Go to the S3 bucket I created earlier, sign URL demo, sub1, sub2, and this is my object I'm going to share. Just click on that, and you can see here the object key is this one. So you can copy this one value and paste it somewhere. We need this one. And bucket name is, we already know the bucket name is this one, sign URL demo. So you are not going to give bucket name with sub1, sub2, because bucket name is actually the top level one. Sub1, sub2 is part of the object key, as you can see here. That's what I wanted to show. So we may need this information later. I'm in my Ubuntu VM again. We are going to configure AWS CLI so that we can give access key as well as secret key. So there's an error I'm getting. Probably I'm going to update the system again. Sudo apt update, and I'm upgrade to see whether that fixes the issue. I don't think it will. Let's do it. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna upgrade the AWS CLI and see whether we can resolve this issue. S3 install. Upgrade AWS CLI. Successfully upgraded. Let's do AWS config again. Yeah, I think that fixes the issue. Right. So at this point, you need to give AWS access key that we created earlier for the user that we created for the purpose of accessing S3 bucket. These are the information I already gave. AWS access key, the one I created earlier for the same user, and the secret key, this one. The default region, in my case the default region is US East 1, and the format you can make it text or JSON, or it doesn't really matter. So I have chosen text. We are at the final section of the demo, so going to create the script that I showed you earlier in the AWS link. This is the script name. We signed URL Python. It's a Python program. So I just already copied the code section, and these are the things that you need to fill out here. So let's make the alignments of the program, and the bucket name. The bucket name in my case is, I think, sign URL. Yeah, let's verify that. Yeah, it's sign URL demo, and the key is, I already copied the key. This is the entire key, and that's it. These are the two things that you need to give, and I'm going to save this and run this program. Let's say Python. Sorry, it has to be Python 3. Yeah. So one more thing we need to give, we need to output this URL to the console. Let's say print URL is the variable. Right. So this is basically the URL, the sign URL actually. So now you can share this URL with anyone if you want to share that object, S3 object, and that person basically can curl, put the URL right here and say output, and then file name. I think my file name is snortrole.pdf. You can give anything and just enter. Okay, I don't have curl. I'm going to install the curl here. I just installed the curl. Now let's run the curl command again, and you can see it is downloading, and file is downloaded. This is the file, and you can actually open that, and it appears to be a valid one because you can see a lot of bytes here, and you can go ahead and open the file, and that's actually the file that we wanted to download from S3. So in this case, it doesn't matter I have the AWS credentials here. That doesn't mean this URL going to access that AWS credentials. AWS credentials you need only to generate the sign URL. After that, you can run this curl command anywhere, any machine basically. So you can, this is the URL, basically you give it to someone that he can access this file. That's it. Thanks for watching. See you with another video. Thanks.